Audiobook Academy. Book Summary. Goldilocks and the Three Bears. By Robert Southey. It was Robert Southey, not Joseph Jacob, who initially wrote the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. The Three Bears' house was broken into by a tiny girl who ate their porridge, sat in their chairs, and slept in their beds. In the past, there lived three bears in a hut in the woods. A big bear, a medium-sized bear, and a small bear were all present. The great big bear had a large pot, the middle-sized bear a medium pot, and the little wee bear a small pot for their porridge. As well as having their own chairs, the great big bear, the middle-sized bear, and the little wee bear had their own. For the great big bear, there was an enormous king-size bed, while the middle-sized bear had a smaller king-size bed. They were kind and gallant bears, so one morning after preparing pots of porridge for breakfast, they decided to wander out into the forest until the porridge had cooled enough to eat. There was a little girl named Goldilocks who lived across the forest, on the other side of the woods. While the bears were out for a walk, she was requested to run some errands by her mother. As a curious child, she peered through the window and through the keyhole. She entered the house as soon as she saw that no one was there. The door was unlocked since the bears who lived there were good bears who didn't desire any harm and didn't think anyone would harm them either. With that, Goldilocks entered the house and found pots of porridge on the table. She would have waited for the bears to return if she were a mannered girl like the bears, but she wasn't. She was a rough, impudent child who helped herself to the porridge and ate some of it herself. She tried the porridge from the great big bear's large pot, but it was too hot for her, so she discarded the sample. Her next stop was a small pot that belonged to the middle-sized bear, and she tried the porridge in that one, but it was too cold, so she gave up on it. A small pot of little wee bear's oatmeal was exactly right for her, neither too hot nor too cold, as she had hoped. She devoured every last morsel. Goldilocks sat down on a big chair that belonged to the great big bear, but it was very hard for her because she had been gathering butterflies all morning instead of running errands. While trying to sit on the middle-sized bear's seat, she was unable since it was too soft. A tiny chair belonging to little wee bear, however, was just right for her. It's just the right amount of firmness. As a result, Goldilocks sat there for some time before the chair's foundation finally fell loose. She sat down on the ground since she was no longer comfortable and decided to take a nap. Despite her appearance, she was a sourpuss. In the room with the three bears, Goldilocks climbed the stairs. In the beginning, she tried to sleep on the great big bear's big bed, but it was too high at the head. She next tried the middle-sized bear's bed, but it had a higher foot than the head and was too high for her to sleep on comfortably. On the little wee bear's little bed, she found a place to rest her head. Not too high at the foot, but not too high at the top. She quickly fell asleep after swaddling herself in a blanket. That morning, the three bears decided to eat their cooled-down porridge at home since they thought it would be safe to do so. The great big bear saw that someone had been eating his porridge since Goldilocks had left the wooden spoon in the large pot. Just to point out that Goldilocks, being the wicked child she was, would have snatched her and put the silver spoon in her pocket if it had been there. "Somebody's been eating my porridge," said the great big bear with his rough, great voice. The middle-sized bear looked at his pot and saw the same. "Somebody's been eating my porridge," said the middle-sized bear with his middle-sized voice. Then the little wee bear looked at his pot, and saw that all porridge was gone. "Somebody has eaten all my porridge," said the little wee bear with his little voice. Now the three bears knew that someone's been in their house, so they searched for that person. Since reckless Goldilocks forgot to put the hard chair cushion straight, the great big bear noticed that someone's been sitting in his chair. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," said the great big bear with his rough, great voice. The reckless Goldilocks also forgot to straighten up the soft cushion after she squatted it down, so the middle-sized bear also noticed that somebody's been sitting in his chair. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," said the middle-sized bear with his middle-sized voice. Since Goldilocks was so mischievous and sat in the base of the small chair, the little wee bear noticed that somebody's been sitting in his chair also. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair and sat in the base of the chair," said the little wee bear with his little voice. Then the bears decided to look further and went upstairs. Since Goldilocks pulled the great pillow out of its place, the great big bear noticed that someone's been lying in his bed. "Somebody's been lying in my bed," said the great big bear with his rough, great voice. Goldilocks also pulled the bolster on the middle-sized bed, so the middle-sized bear noticed that someone's been lying on his bed. "Somebody's been lying in my bed," said the middle-sized bear with his middle-sized voice. But when the little wee bear looked at his bed, he saw that the pillow was there, but placed upon the bolster. And upon the pillow, there was a little girl, a yellow, golden head sleeping in his bed. "Somebody's been lying in my bed, and she's still here," said the little, wee bear with this little voice. Her heavy sleep meant she didn't hear the rumbling, gruff, great voice, which she mistook for thunder or roaring wind. When she heard the middle-sized bear's voice, she thought it was someone speaking to her in her dream and didn't wake up. Nonetheless, when she heard the little wee bear's harsh and biting voice, she awoke promptly. She jumped out of the window when she saw the three bears standing at one side of the bed. Of course, the bears had left the window open, as they do every morning to let in some fresh air. Frightened, Goldilocks broke out the window and dashed into a nearby forest where she was never seen again. Nobody knows what happened to her. It's possible she got herself into some sort of mischief and ended up in the woods, where she was thrashed by her mother for being a bad girl. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button for more content like this. See you in next video.